When I get hired, I am hired to enhance another product. I am the Cialis for a broadcast. I am the Viagra for it. All right? I keep you standing upright and at attention when you're watching these things. I've never said that in my life, and I don't know if this will make the cut.
Oh, it's 100% going to make the cut.
Yeah, this is going to be the short, isn't it? This is going to be the little teaser.
Hello and welcome to episode number 84 of the Hobbies and Happiness podcast, where we talk about the hobby that makes us happy, tabletop gaming. I'm one of your hosts, Dan.
And I'm Jim, and today we're talking with the man himself, Matt DiMarco.
I was just commenting to Jim. I was like, dude, you do that all the time, like the thing themselves type thing. But that's just that's Jim, man. That's his thing. And you know,
just wait for the next one, Dan.
Yeah. All right. Well, before we get into it, let's talk about our sponsor, Amazon Audible. If you head over to our affiliate link at www.audibletrial.com/hobbies and happiness, you can sign up for your free 30-day trial of Amazon's Audible service. What is Audible?
What is
ask?
Audible, Dan?
Thank you for asking, Jim. Audible is Amazon's audiobook service where if you sign up, like we talked about, you get a free 30-day trial and you get a free book added to your account. That's right. You get one free credit to use on any book that you like within the service. And what's even better, if you cancel before that end of that 30-day trial period, you get to keep that free book on your account. What's even better is if you're an Amazon Prime member, you get 2 free credits, 2 credits added to your account, so you can use them for any 2 books on the service. So again, follow that link, audibletrial.com/hobbies and happiness. Sign up for your free 30-day trial today. All right. This was fun. This was a lot of fun. So today we sit down and we talk with Matt DiMarco, better known as Flake in the community. Matt has been a gamer, a card gamer for a very long time. And we talked to him.
He's been around.
We talked to him a lot about card games. We talk about commenting because he is also a caster for a lot of these games. And you know what? Let's get out of the way and let's get right into the talk so you can hear for yourselves.
Enjoy.
All right, today on the podcast, we are joined by Mr. Matt Flake DiMarco. Matt is the host of the Instant Speed podcast and Podcana, a Disney Lorcana podcast. He's also a caster for Flesh and Blood, GWENT, Genesis, Magic, Cards, Mythgard, and probably some other games in there that he forgot to tell us about. So, Matt, how are you doing tonight, sir?
I'm well, and if any of those games that I forgot to mention are still hiring, I love your game. It is incredible. Your game is incredible. It's amazing. It takes up all of my time and my soul, and
would never forget about it.
Never. I would never. No. The reason I don't mention it is because I'm playing hard to get. That's the move.
Yeah.
All right. So Matt, you know, it seems like you've been in this space for a while. You know, we just touched on quite a few different card games. Can you give our audience kind of a brief backstory and history into where you've been at in this space and kind of your history in the tabletop and card game industry?
All right. Well, I mean, I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty, the weeds necessarily. We're not going to kick this off with when a mommy loves a daddy. That's not how we're going to do this.
Is that how that works?
So listen. If that would help me, by all means, I will do what I need to do. I began actually streaming, and I began streaming Hearthstone. There's another one. I worked for Hearthstone. I did a Hearthstone championship tour stop in Philadelphia. I was part of the broadcast team for that with Froden and Admirable. So that's another one I forgot to mention. And I'm still looking for work, Blizzard. Yes. So.
I do understand you forgetting that one, though. Blizzard's not a big company at all. It's
I can't believe that. Like of
forgettable.
all of them. He's relatively
it's like
indie
my first one.
Iceland. Yeah, I know. The first one. Okay, so let's rewind. I've always had an affinity for broadcasting. I went to university not for broadcasting. Ironically enough, I applied for broadcast journalism and I was rejected from broadcast journalism, which was fascinating to me. I ended up getting a degree in political science, but all through that university education, I was doing things like interning at a radio station, running the college radio station. So it was so fascinating to me that it's like, you guys don't want me, but I'm gonna just do it. So go F yourself. Like,
Yep.
that's kind of the move that we went.
Yep.
Ultimately, when I finally graduated and everything, I moved to Toronto, and I needed a real job. I wanted to try my shot at getting a real job, the whole office space kind of, Mr. Lumberg-esque environment, which it's so spot on. It is insanity how spot on it is. There was some clown that did say "Case of the Mondays," and I wanted to absolutely just tear my head off and
Time to
bowl
destroy
it down
the printer.
lane. Yeah.
Did he have a red stapler?
It was not. There was no red swing line stapler. That was not part of it. But there was somebody who was so damn like. It was in. First of all, I had my Han Solo coffee mug stolen, and I'm not over it at all. Can you believe this garbage? And yes, and I had little tiny models of starships, of Star Wars starships that I just put on my desk. And I remember one day somebody left a note saying, "I really like these Star Trek models. Which one is Gandalf?" And I lost my mind.
Which one is Gandalf? Dude, that's the biggest. Yeah. That's some stuff I do at work.
Yeah, you want to hear about quiet quitting? That is the catalyst right there. You do not call the Millennium Falcon Gandalf and get away with it, you sons of bitches. So I got into that world and I hated it. I really didn't like it. But at the end of the day, I was in a brand new city, and like Toronto is 6 million people. It's not a small place. But at the same time, like when you're in your 30s, you don't exactly make friends easily. And like the friends I had at work, like they were great people. Don't get me wrong, but they were work friends, and we didn't share the same kind of hobbies and whatnot. So at the end of the day, what I would end up doing is I'd get home at like 6:30. I'd have something to eat, and I just pop on TV and play Hearthstone on my tablet. And then eventually a friend of mine said, a really good way if you do feel lonely or whatnot is try pick up streaming. You never know. Like you might have the personality for it. You like broadcasting, just give it a shot. And I did. And the Hearthstone aspect didn't really kick off. It was never more than like a handful of viewers for the first few months. And I understood that was kind of the path. But I was eventually introduced to GWENT. And after a few years of streaming GWENT, creating content for GWENT, I was offered an audition with CDPR. They noticed me. They liked me. They said, "Hey, we have a tournament. We need a host for the tournament. How do you feel about doing interviews and stuff like that, and just being the lead in, lead out of the program?" I said, "Yeah, let's go. What's involved?" And then they said, "Well, we're gonna fly you to Warsaw. We're gonna give you, a week in Warsaw. The production's like 3 days, so we'll give you 2 days." 2 days to acclimate. We'll have 3 or 4 days of production and whatnot, and then pay you and send you on your way. I'm like, this is the best deal ever. The best deal ever. So once that audition went through and I did that first event, which in itself was kind of like an audition, eventually they offered me, we want you for the rest of the events for the year. How do you feel about play-by-play? I said, well, at first, I was so against it. I never wanted to touch it. I thought play-by-play was something that really was not my jam. I was more so about interacting with people and playing off people. That's where the interviews came in and whatever. But then you realize, okay, I'm with somebody. Like I'm doing this with somebody. And the first shot I had at it was really awful. It was. But the second time you get into it and you find your niche, you find your groove, you take off running, and that's where it went down to. And I worked with GWENT from, I think it was like 2018 through till the end of 2022. Yeah, so about 4 or 5 years with GWENT. Last year in December was my last event with them. I told them that I'm moving on to focus on Flesh and Blood, and it was a nice conversation I had with their game director in person in Warsaw. I was there for an event. This gentleman, his name is Vladimir Tortsov. He's somebody whom I owe a lot of my career to, if not the first shot. And this is somebody who, if by chance they end up listening to this, thank you so much, because they trusted me to not just be employed and to be one of the casters, but they also gave me an immense amount of leeway to be myself. And that is something that a lot of other places might not be as flexible with. They're typically rigid about following scripts and whatever. Like they would send me the script and I'd be like, yeah, cool. That is an awesome guideline. It's like, like the way that it is that if you want to get to the moon, you have a million people kind of doing all kinds of very intricate calculations and trajectories, et cetera, to land your stupid ass on the moon. And I show up and I'm like, cool, just point and I'll get there. Like that's kind of what it was. And that's where we went. And miraculously, I landed on the moon every time. And I feel like that's kind of where we're at today.
Awesome.
How was your experience working with Gwent? Because I mean, if that was your first gig and you were there for quite a while, how was that whole experience working with that crew in that game? Because I know Gwent is still around and it's still kicking. I'm not certain how popular it is, but I mean, I know it's still a thing. But can you touch on your experience working with that team and that community?
The team itself are so incredible because they really care about the production, about what the game is doing for the community and such. And these people now have gone from being colleagues and from a employment standpoint, and they're just friends. Like these are people that I still communicate with on the regular. Their communications manager, I don't know his exact title. His name is Pavel Burja, and he was with them from the beginning. And when we met, it was like instant brotherhood. When I go visit Warsaw, he picks me up at the airport. I hang out with him at his place with his wife and his dog. We hang out. We play Flesh and Blood together. I introduce him to Flesh and Blood. We go to armories together when I'm in Warsaw. He's like family to me. We had a podcast together for a while about cards, about Gwent, about all kinds of stuff. And I miss this guy dearly. But it's just the nature of the business where people have to move on, and everything's been globalized. The world has shrunk. However, the distance still seems unfathomable at times. But the team is incredible, and it was such an eye opener for me to show up to an event, that first event, and there's like you get through customs, you're going to the baggage claim, and there's a dude in a suit with your name on a sign, and you're like, what the heck? This is like incredible. They drive you to the hotel. You have your room. They're like, all right, you can go, and like the room is right in the middle of downtown Warsaw, and they're like, all right, well, you have fun. Like you don't need to be at the venue. We'll pick you up for rehearsals on like Thursday at 10 a.m. So you have 2 days to putz around and do whatever the hell you want. But you're there with people from the community because they bring in the other broadcasters. They fly in the top 8 competitors to play in the tournament. And then they bring you to the studio, and it's all done in-house. The studio is incredible. Everything was phenomenal. They feed you. They take care of you. They give you all kinds of cool swag. And it's truly a tragedy in my mind that this game, unfortunately, is going to go into maintenance mode, like perma maintenance mode as of 2024, because it's still one of the most unique card games out there. And what really I kind of laugh at is this, not laugh at, but like I find fascinating is the success of a game like Marvel Snap that takes all the tenets and the rules of Gwent and downsizes it and shrinks it into a very small dose. And the rules are almost exactly the same. Like it's almost precisely the same. And it's a shame that game did not get the vibes. It was cursed from the beginning. It had such an explosion onto the scene, rightfully so. It diverted away from the standard tenets of CCGs, which is RNG and all this stuff. Like it wanted to differentiate itself from Hearthstone, and it attracted so many people, but I don't think it ever wanted to be a competitor in that scene. It like Gwent was CDPR's side bitch. That's what it was. Like The Witcher, and they were working on Cyberpunk. So it was like the bastard stepchild. Like no one gave a crap about it. That's the way it was. And unfortunately for us who worked with it, it was our beloved, precious. And then we just, it's tragic that the game, unfortunately, not as many people got to enjoy it.
Yeah, the first time I played that game was because of The Witcher. the Witcher game, The Witcher 3. And then the first time I played, I'm like, holy cow, this is an amazing game. And it's a game within, it was literally Inception. I mean, come on, it was literally Inception, right? And I would play Witcher just to play Gwent because it was awesome. And then when I heard they were doing a standalone Gwent game, I'm like, dude, that is awesome. So yeah, it is unfortunate that it's kind of ending its cycle here.
I remember seeing a bunch of ads for Gwent on YouTube, just like all over the place. That weird little creepy guy at the start, he's just like sitting on a dock or something like that. And he's like, "Want to play a game?" I'm like, "Yes."
I've seen this. I've seen this movie. I don't want to play a game. I don't want to play a game.
Free candy. No. I'm in.
Yeah, I'm in. So Matt, would it be fair to say that you're obsessed with card games?
I think that is probably as close to the proper diagnosis as I can get from anyone outside of the psychiatric academia. Like, let's get real. In all honesty, I had this conversation actually with somebody recently where they said, well, like, so I'm a single guy. I'm, dating apps and all this other garbage like that. The question I always get is, obviously, what do you do for work? Because like I have it listed as nerd broadcaster and I have to explain that. And they're like, well, what do you do for fun? And I'm like, the same thing. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
I'm always researching for my job. Like,
yeah, right.
I'm playing games.
Right.
That's the weird part about it, is that they can't reconcile that what I do for a living is also what I do for recreation. And when I kind of distance myself from that part of it, it's not because I don't want to. It's because I'm actually physically effing exhausted and I need to sit on the couch and jam some. Like, the only things that peel me away from card game and card game related stuff is if some of my buddies, like Tannen and Uber or whatever, they want to play Overwatch, I'm in. I'll play that. The other thing about it is that, yeah.
Mercy main over here. Mercy main.
Oh, we always need a freaking mercy. Tannen can't peel his ass off of Moira for 2 seconds. To
invite to join party. I'm down.
Yeah, pharmacy me, like, for Jesus Christ. I'm out in the air firing rockets like they're Patriot missiles, and I need some healing. And this clown shoes out there just firing sauce orbs everywhere. Anyway.
Medic.
Yeah. Oh my God. That, like, I always get good into playing the tank.
Wait, tell us how you really feel. Tell us how you really feel, Matt.
True story. I literally put out a tweet about 30 minutes ago that says, I am never more vulgar than when I'm playing Overwatch with Uber, Tannen, and my buddy House. Like, I'm never more unappealing than when I am there.
I don't know if other people know this, but I don't like to toot my own horn, but I was like semi-pro in Overwatch, so I'm just throwing that out there.
Oh no, you are listen. There are no loyalties in friendship when it comes to ranking up in Overwatch. I will sell any one of my family members down the road if it means getting out of like Plat or something like get me out of this hellhole.
Elo hell right there.
What was the question? All right. What gets me away? What gets me away from
the only question was, is it fair to say that you're obsessed with card games?
Oh, right. Yeah, that is the question. The only thing, like I said, that peels me away from card game and card game culture is Overwatch. And hey, there's a new episode of Picard on, or there's a new episode of The Last of Us. I'm like, all right, well, we're going to have to sit down and watch it. That's the only thing. Otherwise, before this podcast, like, we started recording this, it was like 9 p.m. my time. I rewatched Picard season 3 episode 1. I rewatched it at 8 p.m. my time while playing Talishar. It's a get more degenerate than that. It does not. It's my life. I can't stress it enough.
All right. So on the heels of that, was there a game that like clicked that for you? Was there a card game that made you become obsessed with card games? Or was it just all of them like combined?
There's a whole lot of it. I think that my first real passion for card games kind of got ignited with Star Wars CCG, because my first introduction to card games was very simplistic. It was very, my number's bigger than your number, I win. And I thought that wasn't ever going to appeal to me because I didn't necessarily know that there was another type of game. I had played Magic very, very casually. A friend of mine had cards, so I literally would dig through and just put all the green stuff together and make a deck. And literally, that's kind of what it was. I'm like,
he hates green. He hates green. I'm a green player. I like green.
All right. But to be fair, okay, he just said in the Star Wars game, he was just like, my number's bigger than yours. I win. Green has really big numbers.
That's true.
I get it.
Well,
I understand.
Now you can see where that foundation of my TCG.
I don't think you're right.
Came.
But I understand.
Listen, I played Magic pretty heftily during like Throne of Eldraine, and I know how awful green can be. I know how mean and disgusting that color can be. So I think it was Star Wars CCG that really introduced me to the fact that games can be complex, they can be drawn out, they can be strategic, planning. It's not just about drawing the right card. It's about how do you properly execute a play? How do you plan out? How do you fake, bluff, not overextend, things like that. And that's something that after that fire was lit, I needed something at the same time when Hearthstone came out. That filled a lot of the voids. And when you realize that when you play a lot of Hearthstone, especially in the early days before Discover was a mechanic, you had to learn to play around things. You had to learn what the best decks were. It wasn't just about playing your own deck or playing your other deck. And that opened my eyes to the fact that this was so much more than just put the best cards together and throw them at your opponent. Strategies and standard things that you learn, like don't overextend in Hearthstone if you don't have to against the right decks. Some of them you have to, some of them you don't have to, things like that. But it was really, I'd say it was Star Wars CCG that lit that fire, but it was Hearthstone that poured gasoline all over it.
Mm-hmm. I feel like that statement, Hearthstone poured gasoline all over that, is true for a lot of people. I know Hearthstone for me, Hearthstone clicked something for me for sure. Hearthstone, man.
One thing you brought up when you were saying, it's not just good enough to know your deck, you have to know your opponent's deck. And inside of like a digital card game, that's really all that goes to. And one thing I've noticed, and we've talked about in the past, and when we're sitting across from each other, I have to know my deck, I have to know his deck, but I also have to read Dan on what he's doing. Because you don't get to see your opponent when you're just playing a ranked ladder, and it's just like, all right, what could they have?
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Because when I was playing Star Wars, in my head, I was like, I kind of know what deck you're playing, but I also know that you're a giant pile of garbage. So I know what your plan is. That's it. You got to know their deep down dark secrets of the types of. I'm like, I know that you double dipped that chip 2 years ago. So I know just how greasy you can get. I know how little regard for the human condition you have. So I know what you're holding, you piece of filth. I know it. That's part of it though, and that's part of why card games to me are such a joy. They're such this fulfilling experience because they're in constant evolution. You're always interacting with somebody else. Be it on something like a Hearthstone match where the interaction is through the gameplay, or you're across the table. And I can't tell you how many friends I've made that I stay in touch with and interact with on a weekly basis because we randomly paired up. People like Jacob Bertrand, from Cobra
you randomly
Kai.
paired with paired with Jacob Bertrand.
I did.
That's crazy.
I randomly paired with him. I thought it was Jacob Bertram from Realm Games because I saw the name. I'm like, you mofo, you should be working your kiosk. I sit down. I have not a clue who this person is because I've never seen Cobra Kai. Not a clue.
Dude. That is so crazy, man.
I show up like a complete toolbox because I say, you're Jacob Bertrand? And he's like, yeah, man. I'm like, you can't be. That's Jacob Bertrand. And I told him the story and he was, and he's like, what a freaking doofus. And I was like, so we play our whole game and we're just laughing and shooting the breeze and having a great time. At the end of the game, I was like, hey, may I offer you some some advice on this matchup. He was playing Fi, I was playing Oldham. He was running like Kodachis into me, and I was like, you can't run Kodachis into Oldham. It's just a death sentence, especially with Mask of Momentum. We're chatting it out. And he's like, dude, you're a really nice guy. The last Oldham player I played is a complete asshole. And I was like,
Yeah.
and we started talking about that. Anyways, that wraps up. I go back to my buddies, some of my teammates at Kayfabe Cards. I was like, yeah, can you believe it? I just queued into somebody who's named Jacob Bertrand, almost like Jacob Bartram. He's like, dude, that guy's the Cobra Kai guy. I was like, give me a second. I go walk up to him, and I'm like, Jacob. He's like, yo, what's going on? I'm like, I am an idiot. I'm really sorry. And like, we started chatting. We ended up going to dinner.
That's so cool, man.
I had a great time, and then he was on the podcast a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. And I saw that, and I didn't know he played Flesh and Blood because we're big into Magic, and we saw him on a couple of Magic shows and like the Command Zone, and before he was on that, we love Cobra Kai. Like I think.
I was actually going to bring that show up. I'm like, really? The only shows I watch now are like Cobra Kai. That's about it.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that show, it is ending. This is the last season. You should watch it. It's check out just a couple episodes just to see if it's your jam. But it's a lot of fun. It is a lot of fun.
The fun part about this was that a few days, like I had a weekend before I was recording with Jacob for the podcast, and I was like, beauty. I'm like, I've got like 3 or 4 days. Let's just hammer out this whole Cobra Kai thing, see what it's all about,
Okay.
Just at the same time, Netflix decided to cancel their password sharing garbage. So in my head, I was like,
no.
And I was like, is Jacob worth $9.99? No, I didn't watch it. And I flat out told him.
We're clipping that right there. That's funny.
He knows. I told him flat out. I told him, I'm like, so you're an actor and you do all this, and I'm asking you questions. And I'm like, never watched it. Go. It's like we went from there.
That's great. That's pretty funny. Okay, so speaking of Flesh and Blood, what was it that got you into Flesh and Blood? Was there something in particular that sparked your interest in the game, or kind of how did you start making that transition over to Flesh and Blood?
So I was introduced to the game by a friend of mine by the name of Lewis Woodhouse. All credit goes to Lewis. He goes by the moniker What's Up Woody. He used to stream Gwent. He's also was in marketing for card games and such. And so he always had his finger on the pulse of new card games, and he said, hey, Flake, you should really try this one out. And he was streaming it on tabletop just to show people the rules and such. And it caught my eye. So I said, I'm going to go and pick up some Blitz decks and played a game at the time with my girlfriend at the time. We played against each other, and she beat me, and she beat me again. And I was like, son of a bitch. Like, all right, you don't play card games, and I'm getting bodied by this. I'm like, sounds good. But what really got me with this was when I was finally introduced to Katsu and Ninja and the combo mechanics.
Ooh,
and I thought, okay, this is more something I'm digging. This is more about building up to bigger turns. It's not just about pitch 3, send 8, go crazy. Everyone's having a good time. This was more so a matter of let's have a game plan. Let's work our way. Let's chip away. I'm a control player by nature in every card game I've ever played. But what really kind of drove me to continue and really seek out what Flesh and Blood was all about, I abandoned Magic. I was not happy with Magic. I didn't want to, but I missed ripping packs. Like when I used to collect Star Wars cards, busting open a pack of Star Wars cards was like as close to child cocaine as you can get. And
did you smell the cards?
Oh, I not only smelled them, I had the sick, nasty thing where, first of all, shout out to my buddy Jed. My buddy Jed, who I used to play cards with all the time. His superstition was whenever he bought packs, he had to lick one. And I was like, that's you, buddy. That's you.
Like lick the wrapper or the cards?
Yes. No, lick the wrapper.
That's
for me, there was one where I remember I bought a bunch of packs, and one of them fell out of my hand and hit the floor in such a way that it kind of made a loud like smack. And in it was Han Solo. And I was like, so every time I used to buy packs, I used to take one and literally just freaking like Tom Brady it across the room. And because I thought it was a good luck. Now the damage that was incurred by the
I
cards.
was going to say, I'm like, no cards were damaged in this video.
No, plenty were. But I wanted that feeling again. It's like then I went to Magic and I was like, okay, I got disposable income. I was still working the office job, making really good money. And I was like, all right, let's start ripping packs. But I just was not getting the same joy in Magic. And then Flesh and Blood rolled around and I was like, you know what? I'm like, let's try it out. And then the first booster box I opened was a Welcome to Wraith booster box and pulled a Tunic. And I was like, this is easy.
Wow.
First,
yeah,
there was
there was
an E-Strike in that box. There was like, there was some good stuff. Second box I ever bought was Arcane Rising. What do we have in there? Command and Conquer, Art of War, Arcanite Skullcap. Easy peasy.
Wow.
Not a problem. It was like the easiest thing.
That's crazy.
But I mean, that's an easy way to kind of get hooked. And but what really solidified it for me was when I started understanding the premise, like the underlying layers of every turn, how intricate the game can be, and ultimately how on the surface it's just trading numbers of damage, but there's so much more to it. And that really was, I'm like, man, like you pull the lid off this and you're going to be digging for days and days and hours looking at strategy.
So you talked about the start of your career and kind of how you got into doing casting, right? One thing that you mentioned, which I found interesting, was you went to broadcasting school, got rejected, but you did it anyway, right?
Yes.
To me, that so speaks to, you don't need a piece of paper. If you have the drive, the desire, and the work ethic, you can make it happen on your own. I feel like we're living in this day and age where anyone, for the most part, can do that, and a lot of people are doing it. Like, and not to say that it's easy, but like work ethic and desire are huge. I mean, looking back on your career, like, what can you look to that point? Like, are you happy that you got rejected?
God, no. What are you, insane? God, no.
Well,
He's like, I'd be so much further.
I had to sit through 90 freaking credits of political science. Don't get me wrong. Okay, so first of all, shout out.
I'm like, I don't know what he's going to do with that.
shout out to Concordia University in Montreal's Faculty of Journalism and like Media. Suck a high hard one. That's all I'm going to say. I did it without you. I went to political science because of the remaining programs that were still accepting applications at that late into the application process. That was the only one that I was like, wow, I could do this and not want to kill myself every day. So like I went to that. After the first year, because I couldn't change programs until there was about a year or so through, and I had done a full year. And I was like, you know what? I'm through the dry stuff. And I did at a time want to actually pursue politics until I went and learned about politics. So, but at the same time, I was like, I don't ever want to have to restart or go through this, because while I was doing the political science in that first year, I had already landed an internship. And what was really fascinating to me is that when I was doing radio for, it's like the Canadian equivalent of ESPN radio. It's called TSN Radio. TSN Radio in Montreal. I was doing kind of like an intern role, but the person I was interning for, who had a radio show, was a former NHL player named PJ Stock, who was an immensely kind and generous, if not goofy person. And he's like, dude, I don't care. He's like, he told me, he's like, this is just a conduit for me to get on TV. So I don't really give a S about it. So the microphone's there, say whatever the hell you want, just don't swear, cuss, say bad words or whatever, and we're free to go. And it was a really cool experience. But when I applied for it, the program director looked at my, he's like, oh, what are you in school for? I said, well, it's not broadcast journalism. And I thought that was the nail in the coffin. He said, well, what are you actually in for? I said, political science. He's like, that's better. He's like, you have a worldview, you have opinions. You're not in this echo chamber of, he's like, we get 12.5, broadcast journalism applicants for internships every week. They're all the same. He's like, you have a different aspect of your worldview here. You're actually learning about stuff, that is outside of sports, and that can lend itself to these conversations. And I thought that was very important. And that's when I decided, I was like, I don't need to switch majors. I said, all I need is the ambition, the effort, and the willingness to learn and fail and learn and fail and learn and fail and learn and succeed. And that's where we eventually got to where we are today.
Yeah, that question came out wrong. Okay. Where my head was at was, I know for me in particular, when I look back on my life, I've had a lot of ups and a lot of downs. And I feel like if I would just cut out all of the downs, all the bad stuff that happened to me, I would not be where I am today. Like, yes, the positives have made me who I am, but also the negatives. So that was where my head was at when I asked the question. The delivery was not quite there. That's okay.
Hey, any opportunity to tell Concordia University to suck a high hard one makes me feel so good. Oh my God. I wrote, this is the other part about it, was that I wrote for their newspaper. I was a sports columnist for their newspaper, and they didn't want me in their journalism program. You dummies. Like, I don't understand. And that's why I don't have that diploma hanging from my back wall. I have the ass man license plate from Seinfeld, because that is more important to me than like my university degree.
That is funny. Okay, so going off of casting a little bit, how important, and I know you've got an opinion on this too, how important is casting to these competitive card game tournaments or casts? Can a good caster, can a caster in general, good or bad, make or break an event?
So do you want the politically correct answer, or the real answer?
No, I want the real answer.
All right. Well, the politically correct answer is going to be, no, absolutely not. The quality of the gameplay is what drives the viewership and the intrigue. It's a
That's
narrative
definitely
created.
wrong.
Yeah. Well, that's what people want to say.
Do people really want to say that though?
I don't think anyone wants to say that.
Well, I mean, like I'm trying not to pump my own tires as much as possible here, but I have seen what part of it for me, which was I can do this and I can succeed at this, was because I have seen tournaments where the casting was atrocious. And that isn't to say that I was not bad when I began, because I was terrible.
Yeah.
But it made me not necessarily not want to watch, but I would just tune it out. And when you tune it out, when you mute it, you're like, okay, well, at the same time, I'm missing elements of it that I should be, so you're detracting from the enjoyment, the engagement of the people who are watching it. A good broadcaster for a tournament, and this is the one thing that I think a lot of people don't necessarily reconcile within themselves, is a lot of people think that they can do what I can do, and a lot of them can. That's never in question. And I would always encourage people to go and make a run at it. Go do it. It's absolutely for me, it is the most fulfilling and happy thing I have ever been involved with, is this. And I'm lucky for that. But a lot of people want to do it because they want to be the show. They want to be they want to be the star. They want to be the centerpiece. And that's not what you're there for. When I get hired, I am hired to enhance another product. I am the Cialis for a broadcast. I am the Viagra for it. All right. I keep you standing upright and at attention when you're watching these things. I've never said that in my life, and I don't know if this will make the cut.
Oh, it's 100% going to make the cut.
Yeah, this is going to be the short, isn't it? This is going to be the little teaser. But the way that I describe it is that I'm not play-by-play. I'm not color, though those are the roles that are usually attributed to the broadcast team when we go and do a thing. I'm a storyteller. I drive narrative. I am there to clarify and enhance what you're already seeing. I am not on screen. Don't get me wrong. I love doing what I do. I love being on screen because I love being able to entertain, but I am not the star of the show. I'm not the like when people say, "Oh, you're the face of Flesh and Blood or the voice of Flesh and Blood," I get really nervous saying that or
Wow.
kind of listening to that because it's not true. What the voice of Flesh and Blood are the players playing the game, designing the decks, and having such intriguing and high level matches. And I'm just as much of a fan of it as everyone else. It just so happens that I'm able to be there with a microphone and basically articulate the significance of what's going on, to dress it up, to put, the makeup on the pig if it's a bad match, or to just sort of give it the runway when it's just basically telling itself. And that is a skill set that I think broadcasters, when they get in, they feel like they always have to be the centerpiece. They always have to have the spotlight. And in reality, that's not true. We're narrators, we're storytellers, we're the ones that are out there, just trying to paint within the lines that the game itself has established the framework for.
Yeah, that's I really like the way you put that. And I really wish that a lot of people, and I feel like the storytelling aspect is so applicable to a lot of different spaces, a lot of different industries. And I think when you view what you're doing through that lens of you are telling a story, particularly in any sort of entertainment industry, I think the work that's gonna come out of that is gonna be a lot better than, look at me, I'm the star of the show, right? So I really, really like the way you put that. All right, I wanna make sure we get to talking about Lorcana, because I feel like we could be here for like 3 hours.
True.
All right, so I've been listening to Podcana, guys. Right at time of recording, we've got 2 episodes in. Both have been phenomenal so far. You and Brendan Patrick, that's his name, right? Okay. I've enjoyed both episodes so far, right? Now, Podcana is one of the, what do we got, like 50 different podcasts that have started about Lorcana.
In the last week.
Oh, yeah.
All right. But I do have to ask you, what is it? So 2 questions. Number 1, what is it that has you excited about Lorcana? And then why did you start a podcast about Lorcana, a game that where there's information out, but not a ton of information, and we have no idea how to play the game yet?
So, all right. So the first thing is, what was the first question again? Why did I start
what has you excited about it? What has you excited about Lorcana?
What has me excited about Lorcana is it's a paper-based card game that essentially has the backing of Disney. And the reason why that gets me excited is because I'm a fan of a lot of Disney IP, and I'm not just talking about Star Wars, and I'm not just talking about Marvel. I'm talking about the OG stuff. One of the most underrated.
There
Disney
is a
movies.
reason I wore this shirt today.
Oh yeah, you're literally you're speaking to me in so many beautiful ways. What was I saying? Right. So I'm excited about it because I truly believe that an entity like Disney wouldn't license out their IP to an entity like Ravensburger, who's doing the game, unless Ravensburger had a really damn good idea. Like if it wasn't just something silly, something just rudimentary, run of the mill, reskin of Magic, reskin of Hearthstone in paper, blah, 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 blah. I don't think that they would trust another entity unless the idea was a home run. Outside of that, I don't see how this can fail. And I'm not saying that it's bulletproof, but you've got the backing of Disney, you've got the IP to support it. Like it's a recipe that basically will appeal to collectors, casuals. They've announced an OP, like they said, there's going to be an organized play system. That's going to attract a lot of people. I mean, if you look at a game like Pokemon has, I don't know, I'm friends with a lot of LGS owners, and they say, like, as many people that are playing it competitively, there's droves more who just want to open packs and collect the shinies. And I completely understand that. And I truly believe that if Lorcana's out there, they're appealing to so many different demographics and markets and interests in card games that it can't lose. Now, it's definitely fair criticism to say, how can you possibly create a podcast not knowing a damn thing about the game? But I rebut with this. there were cards and keywords and text
Mhm.
and things that were leaked when we decided to make this, that we had an idea that we thought the game was going to be a certain way, and we liked that idea, that concept.
Mhm.
Now,
Mhm.
more information has since come out, and
Sure.
that has only enhanced our excitement for it.
Absolutely.
So when you say there's 50 podcasts out there, that's kind of the way it goes. Whenever a new game comes out, everybody
That's
wants
true.
like
That's true.
everybody wants to get in at the ground floor. Like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
freaking Amway like you've never heard.
I mean, we're pretty much
wanna
a
get-
Lorcana podcast now at this
Yeah,
point. We
right.
always bring it up every
we always
episode.
bring it up. Yeah.
Right. But
Yeah.
we, like Brendan and I mean, Brendan kind of sort of stepped away from competitive Flesh and Blood, and I'm not working as many Flesh and Blood events, official Flesh and Blood events, and I had other things I wanted to explore, and I really was into this Disney thing, and I was like, dude, do you want to do it? And he's like, if we do it, we do it. I don't say he said we do it my way, but he's like, I want to do it in the same
right way,
vein.
essentially. Yeah.
Right. He's like, this is our focus. This is what we're going to do. And this is how we approach it. I want it to be strategy. I want it to be geared up towards the players that are playing to play the game, to win the game, not to collect the game. I
Not
said,
to collect
damn right.
it. Yeah.
So that's where we approached it. And the issue is like, we could have waited till August when the game launches, but we would be missing out on a lot of big conversation
And you'd be behind
pieces.
the curve. Yeah. 100%.
Bingo. And
Yep.
I mean, look,
Sometimes you
from
got to play tempo.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, we're on hard ramp right now. Okay, Druid ramp 20 mana crystals like crazy. But from a selfish standpoint, like I will completely be transparent here. This is also something that I want to work with. I want to cast, and the way to do that is to be involved in the space.
Yep.
If I never get a casting gig with Lorcana, but I like the game, I'm going to continue the podcast and I'm going to continue playing the game. It's just the way it is.
Yep.
But this is a way for me to connect with the community, and that's why it exists.
100%. So a couple things there. Number one, that question was mostly done tongue in cheek. I do feel very fortunate though. Like I feel like Lorcana for us just dropped at the most opportune moment for us, and we're like, this is an opportunity for us. And are you familiar with the game Villainous at all? Disney Villainous.
I am not familiar with it.
So Disney Villainous is all right. So Disney Villainous is it's a board game by Ravensburger. Okay, and I think Disney Villainous is the reason that Ravensburger is being allowed to do Lorcana, because of the care that they took with the IP that is Disney, and how well that game sold and how well they did making that game, that one of them, either Disney or Ravensburger, saw that and then approached the other and said, hey, how about we do a trading card game? And then off of that success, Disney was like, absolutely, you guys have shown that you can treat this IP with the care it deserves. 100%, we are going to give our blessing to something like this. So in my opinion, Villainous is the reason that Lorcana is being done by Ravensburger. In fact, for all we know, I think Villainous could be the reason that Lorcana is even a thing to begin with. So there's that. Also, you ever need somebody to talk about Lorcana, just hit me up. I got you.
I dig it.
So going off of that, do you think that this quote slow drip, right, of marketing information is the right approach right now? I mean, granted, we are so far out, like they've kind of planned this thing to a T almost, like they know when release is. Do you think that the way that they're going about this is the right approach? And if not, how would you like to see it go?
I think it is the right approach, and it's the right approach right now. And the reason I say that is because what they're dropping, if you don't know the whole picture at all, it's like you're at the beginning stages of the puzzle, and it's like, okay, this piece fits into this piece, but I don't know where it is in the grand scheme of things. So there's a lot of conversation. But if once the rules are set, the OP announcement, all this stuff, like for instance, if they pulled this, next year after they've had their first tournaments, and they're like, if they slow roll it after that, that's bad news to a degree.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And
right.
part of this is like when I think it was like when The Mandalorian came out, people were complaining that it was not all the episodes didn't drop at once so you can binge it.
Yeah.
People like I
was not happy.
I was like, I gotta wait a freaking week to find out like what the hell,
Find out next time.
But let's be real, that was actually enhancing the show, because if you can drop it all and watch it in a weekend, you're not giving two craps about Disney Plus or the conversation or where Jinjarin fits in the entire scope of the universe and where Grogu fits in the entire scope of the universe. So by them just saying, I'm like,
Yoda.
You son of a bitch, you sick son of a bitch. I came on this show in good faith that I would not be slandered as such. Why don't we just call all Canadians Americans too? Why don't we do that?
Well, I mean, you're North Americans.
You son of a... I don't really drink, but damn it. My emergency whiskey is just yelling at me right now.
Oh, that's great.
So that said, when they just come out and say, oh, by the way, here's a new card type, and it's like, all right, we have a week's worth of conversation. Then all of a sudden they're like, well, hey, how about this? Let's drop you with a little bit of the rules, or drop you with a card that has a new keyword with it. Boom. I think that is the right approach, because it's a slow drip, but it's sustainable. And that's the important part. The problem is that once everybody gets all this stuff and you're like, all right, when's the next expansion? Like, don't slow roll us on this, mouse. Like, give it to us, buddy.
Yep. In your opinion, what's the one thing that Ravensburger has to get right for Lorcana not to be a failure? If you could boil it down to one thing.
I think that, okay, well, the first thing I'm going to say, and this is a shout out to my boy David Rude, who runs Harry Tarantula here in Toronto. Distribution has to be on point, because I've seen and heard the plights of LGSs here in Canada that get gooned by distributors who play favorites or do this or do that and whatever. And the allocation typically is like, well, big box stores that don't give a hoot about the game are getting so much because their volume of sales is so huge. But you, who's running tournaments and learn to plays and selling singles and stuff, we'll give you like 10% of the allocation. Like, that's one thing that I think needs to happen. And I never thought I'd say this, 2 years ago, but in the course of my Flesh and Blood career, I've made really good connections with LGS owners, and like understanding how important distribution is a major, major point. The other thing I think that they have to get right is you have to make this casual accessible, because if this becomes a game where the best cards in the game are the rarest and most expensive, it becomes dangerous. And players and collectors are like, I don't ever want to hear a story. The one time I will hear a story of some dude who cheats a kid out of a bad trade will drive me up the wall, and I will be the one with the pitchfork and the torches hunting this clown down. That is the other thing, is that you have to make sure that kids can enjoy the game on the cheap, where the whales can get the super rare alternate art Jafar. I don't know, I'm making stuff up, but
wait, you have information that you better share it.
It's not a 5-drop. It's not a 5-drop. And he doesn't pair with Iago. I'm not saying that. But that said, I think that is an important element to it, that it has to be casual, accessible, where kids can both collect and play on the kitchen table without sleeves, like the savages they are, and just go through that. Whereas the collectors and the people who want to play in a competitive environment and want to bling out their stuff won't have to go and fleece a kid at the LGS that just opened alternate art super foil Jafar. Like, that's the kind of thing I'm talking about.
Yeah. So you saying that, shout out to John T over at the Illumineers. We've had him on our weekly show, our weekly stream, on Friday nights, and one of the things that he mentioned, because he helps run an LGS, and he's super excited, about the game. He's like, one of the things that they want to start doing is like have like family nights where you can, because there's families who are gonna want to get into this game, and he's like, I want to be sure that we are essentially policing trades that are happening, like if that way kids don't get fleeced, right? Well, I mean, because that's essentially what you're doing for lack of a better word, right? But they don't want there being experienced card game players taking advantage of opportunities of kids who don't know what they're doing, essentially, and being cheated out of like a trade, essentially. So I think as long as there's more people like Jonty and LGS owners like that, then like that's where the community needs to be at 100%.
It's important. It's important because it's part of the experience. And I I don't know how many stories I hear of people and like Reddit posts and whatever of like, I'm not playing the game because I don't want to go back to a place because I had a bad experience. And I'm lucky enough that most of my experiences have always been very positive and, in the games that I play. And I hope that carries over. But I think that this is going to be a game where there is a lot of cross-pollination of demographics of the older crowd. I say older, but like the 25 plus with disposable income that are playing because they want to win, with the the younger kids, the 16 and younger, who are cracking packs because they want to fill a binder, and maybe they play a casual game. I can't fathom. It boils my blood to think of people taking advantage of kids. And that's one thing I think that, I mean, it's hard for Disney to, or Ravensburger to police this. Obviously that's not their jam, but I think that's something that if stories like this start to crop up where there's this one group that preys upon the other, that's dangerous. And that's so awful.
Yeah. Now, given where we're at now, right, and granted, we're still very early in even the knowledge space of Lorcana, right? But given what we know now, do you think that Lorcana will stand the test of time in the TCG marketplace, or do you think that there are signs that point to it coming out, fizzling, and dying like so many have in the TCG marketplace in the past?
Let's qualify success and the test of time, because I don't think anything is eternal, obviously,
right?
But what to you would constitute quote unquote surviving the test of time?
A decade.
10 years. Okay, so I think that that is, if I were to put money on it, that they're printing a set for Lorcana in 10 years, I'm slamming a hundo down on that, no problem. Again, my confidence is not 100%, certainly not, but I think that they have enough IP in the vault before they even have to explore other things like Star Wars or Marvel. I don't think that those are even on the table for a 5-year plan. They could release an expansion per movie, and if they're doing 4 per year, they're good for like the next God knows how many years, 10, 15 years easily.
Right.
And they're still jamming out movies. So like they're filling their own coffers with substance. The difference is how do those cards interact with one another and whatever. I think the test will be in like 2 or 3 years when they have to start thinking about something like standard rotation or that kind of power creep and that problem, because every card game deals with it. Yep. And those that don't respect power rotation are doomed. And I'm looking at you, Gwent, because I wrote you letters and wrote you giant essays about standard rotation for 3 consecutive years, and now unfortunately the game's not going well, and now you're saying that maybe standard rotation was a good idea. So it's the natural progression of it, and it's how they handle that. I am confident that this is a game that will not just be around in 10 years, but has the chance to be up there as one of the big 3.
Leads me into my next question. I'm glad you said that. So we did an episode actually all about can Lorcana make its way to the big four of card games. So the question I have written down here is, will the Mount Rushmore, the big three of card games, shift in the next decade in the West? What do you think, and do you think Lorcana has that potential to be that shift, or at least be a part of that shift?
Okay, so if we're talking about the big three, we're talking about Magic the Gathering, we're talking about Pokemon, and we're talking about MLB Showdown, right? Like, that's for sure.
100%.
No, I'm wrong there.
100%.
Okay. So, what's the third one in your assessment?
It's Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yu-Gi-Oh, and
Okay.
again, that's based on sales, just strict sales in the West.
Okay, so will it be able to be that fourth face on this Mount Rushmore in 10 years? I think it absolutely has every symptom of being a massive success. It has the money and might of Disney to promote it, to support it, to basically bail it out if it has a bad year. Not a problem. That's not it, because there's so many. We were talking offline about Mythgard. Mythgard, in my assessment, is one of the best digital card games I've ever played in my entire life. Hands down. It had a great mana system. It had the mechanics of Hearthstone with added lanes and interaction and stuff. But it was an indie company where the owner of Rhino Games was basically funding it himself. And one bad month or one bad stretch run is doom, because it's like I'm either on the street or I'm supporting this game. So that's the difficult of it. Disney is like, Disney can walk down the street and have $1 million fall out of their pocket, and they'll be like, wow, I feel I lost weight. Amazing. Like, that's kind of how they go. I think that it has every opportunity to supplant it based on the fact that it has an appeal to both collectors, youth, and now competitive people, like the competitive environment, because they're going to have an OP. Obviously, if the OP is just like, Friday Night Magic, if it doesn't go beyond that, then that's problematic. But I think what Disney's seeing is that people go to these big events, Flesh and Blood major events, and Magic Pro Tour just wrapped up and was really successful. People want to see it. People want to go. This is just another marketing scheme for Disney to sell more movie tickets, more merchandise, more for whatever. It's just, that's all it is. I don't see how this can fail. And if they don't colossally F up in the next 10 years, I think it could shoot past Pokemon 100%.
So do you think Ravensburger has to really massively screw up for this thing to fail?
Oh, they need to go on like a Kanye West level bender to mess this one up. I don't know how else to properly.
They're gonna go on InfoWars.
Yeah. They're gonna wear their whole morph suit, bodysuit thing, and say some really questionable stuff. Be like, I love Hades. Especially
Hades did nothing
Hades.
wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
Hades did nothing wrong. Changed my mind.
But they need to actively want to screw this up, because they basically, they have a parachute, a reserve parachute, another reserve parachute. They have a dude holding on to them with a parachute, and then there's the entire floor is a marshmallow. So how do you screw up?
Right. So I also wanted to ask you, we're in an age right now, and especially with where we are with Lorcana, there's a lot of questions that everyone is asking. They're at Disney Lorcana, is there going to be a digital client? Do you think that digital clients, let's see, how did I phrase this? How important are digital clients in the current TCG and CCG space? Does a game need a digital client to be successful? I know the answer to that. The answer to that is no, because look at Flesh and Blood. There is no official digital client for that. But where do you see digital clients in the current TCG space, and how important are they in the space?
Well, if you're in the boardroom, the question basically gets tabled. It's, ladies, gentlemen, do we like money? And then that's basically resounding yes, right?
It also has to be a mobile-based game as well, because that's how you make even more money.
That's
Oh
true.
God, dude! If I could crank out a Lorcana game while I'm like on the toilet, oh please, like, don't get me
Sign
wrong.
me up.
Yeah, productivity down the toilet, literally. That said, I truly think that it's not, like you said, it's not necessary to succeed, but it is certainly necessary um to rake in dollars like crazy. And I think that it is going to have one. Probably on launch, maybe not on launch, but possibly. And the reason why I think that is because they've already have a companion app. I think that's the first step towards things like card packs having a QR code thing where like you just scan and you earn points, and those points can then be transferred into the actual game. Not to mention, when you look at the cards that they show on the website, they're animated. And that might be the fact that they're already working on some sort of digital thing, because they're putting the work into the digital version of the card. Now, that could be a yes, that could be a no. I think that what they're looking to do first and foremost is just release the game. And I think that's fair. I think that if they released it as just a digital client, that's not the right way to go. But what really kind of gets me excited about the game is that if any game that any game that has a paper version automatically excludes some of the most vile types of game mechanics like discover and random effects ever. So there's going to be no dice rolling. There's going to be no discover effects and all this other garbage that makes me want to throw my tablet out the window. And I think that when you have that, it's very simple to sort of port that over to a digital client.
So how much money would you be willing to put down today that there will eventually, we'll say within the first 2 years, within the first 2 years, there will be a digital Lorcana client. How much money would you be willing to put down today?
I will give you everything I have. So $57 Canadian.
All right.
Legal.
Hey,
Oh, so that's like $5.
Yeah. That's good enough for a biggie bag, baby. Hell yeah.
So
What about tax, though?
Okay, listen. Let me invest it in low risk mutual funds. In like a year and a half, I'll have the tax covered.
Understood. You got a year.
All right. So going back a little bit quick to broadcasting. Do you have a broadcasting idol?
I do, actually.
Okay.
My broadcasting idol is actually Vin Scully. Vin Scully, Dodgers baseball broadcaster for many, many years. And the reason why, an absolute legend. And he unfortunately passed away a few years ago. Yep. I'm a huge Dodgers fan. I respect him because he's obviously the consummate professional. He's respected within the organization that he's worked for so many years. But what really impressed me about him that I really wanted to look up to was the fact that he did it on his own. He oftentimes didn't have color commentary. He was the whole package for 9 innings. And in order to just maintain that level of focus, maintaining the interest of your viewership, of your listeners, and still being able to weave this magical narrative of what's going on and keep it so pristine and so awesome, and never flubbing a word and never forgetting a name, and knowing what, Clayton Kershaw's daughter's birthday is, like things like that. It was absolutely just mesmerizing to watch him and listen to him while I would watch. Like, I used to watch like 100 Dodger games a year. Like that's what I used to do. I bought the MLB package, and again, this is like when I moved here and I had nothing left to do, and Dodger games came on at like 10 p.m. locally. Yeah. So I'd slam those on in the evenings and listen to Vin Scully while I was like, and then I'd go to bed, and like it'd be like midnight. I'd be laying in bed, and I'd have the radio on, and I'd have the game wrapping up, and I would listen to Vin Scully, and you never think about it, because at the time I never thought of this as like an actual option for a profession. But
Mhm.
when I started getting my gigs, I remember vividly doing a GWENT tournament at the onset of COVID lockdown. We did it remotely, and I
Mhm.
did it here remotely in my apartment. And there were technical difficulties, and it's like a nightmare because I'm there with somebody who has, I was broadcasting, my co-caster was somebody who had not much experience, and they're great. They were awesome. But it was on me when I got that word in my ear saying, we need you to kill some time. And I hear that. I'm like, okay. And then I hear about 30 minutes. And I was like,
Oh, wow.
cut to break or something, you doofuses, but I can't say that. So we went,
Wow.
I had to, like, there's only so much you can talk about the decks. There's only so much you could talk about the competitors and the gravitas of the entire event. But I started going through my comics and doing trivia about some of the stuff that I had and just telling stories and how they related to the game. And a lot of that was because of, I was channeling a little bit of Vin Scully in me.
Yeah. Wow. So it like it's really interesting. Like that was honestly that was like one of the most beautiful tributes to Vince Scully I think I've ever heard in all honesty, right? But that is what Vince Scully meant to so many people. It's crazy. And now fast forward to, 2023, right? Where we are now. And now with the rise of esports and video game commentating, video game casting, I wonder if the kids now are going to be looking up to like people like Flake and other game casters and not sports commentators. Like when did broadcast, like when did it become this? Like, and that's not a bad question, right? It's just the shift. There's been such a shift from sports to now we have esports and so many more different things where people are commentating and
It's that
casting.
nerd culture.
Yeah. Like when did
Big time.
when did that start becoming a thing that you saw, Flake?
Well, this was always a conversation I'd have with people. Like whenever I would tell them about my career, and for the, uninitiated into this sort of, like you said, nerd culture universe, the way that they'd be like, oh, that's weird. I said, well, let me ask you this. If you think Twitch is weird, they're like, why would you do that? Why would you watch other people play video games? I said, well, why do you watch people play hockey? They're like, well, what, are you kidding me? I said, well, why? Why do you watch the NHL? They're like, because I like hockey. I said, okay, so why don't you go to the rink across the street and watch people play hockey? He's like, well, I want to watch the best in the world. I said, so do I. So do I. I want to watch the best in the world play these games. This is my interest.
Right.
And I said, I'm like, okay, why do you not watch it the game on mute? They're like, well, come on, let's be real. I said, no, seriously, why do you not just like listen to music or have a conversation? Like, well, I want to hear what they have to say. So do I. I said, it's the exact same thing. The danger of this, and like, I will be completely transparent about this every year. Like, this is a business that doesn't pay frequently, if I will say. I mean, there's a very few that are under contract and have steady income. I'm on contract for each event that I work. I get a paycheck and then I have no idea when I get paid. It's a very dangerous way to live when you don't know when you're next, because you might have a month where you're like, I did 2 or 3 events. I'm like, I'm way ahead. But then you might go 2 or 3 months where you don't know that you don't get paid. So I might get a fat paycheck, but I can't spend it because who knows when I can't make rent. So that's the reality of it. And to go back to what I was saying, every year I go and apply for sports radio. I'm like, and the first thing they say is, do you have experience? And I say, abso-effing-lutely I do. I have plenty of experience in front of tens of thousands of people. Not a problem. Years of it. Thousands of hours of it. And they're like, what radio station did you work for? I never worked for a radio station. I interned for one for a year. Okay, well, what TV station do you work for? Didn't work for a TV station, but I've been on screen for thousands of hours in front of hundreds of thousands of people. Well, what are you talking about? Well, I work in this industry. That's not real experience. These are actual conversations I have all the time. All the time. And I'm like, here's my demo reel. Here's my this. Here's my that. And they don't want to hear a wink of it because it's not real experience to them. And that is that is shifting, but
Mhm.
it's also the struggle of this business because
Mhm.
in the same vein that you say, someone in a fit of lunacy might look up to me as like an idol in broadcasting. They like the rest of the industry doesn't recognize this part of it. It's
Yeah.
it's the truth of it. There are some
Yeah.
who have broken through. People like Golden Boy, for example, has broken through and transcended, and that is incredible, and that is so inspiring because people like
Mhm.
me just want that. I
Mhm.
want the security of a contract and knowing that, hey, I don't have to buy ramen this month. Like I can actually put something that expires in my fridge, like you get it? Like, so that's where we're at. And
Yeah.
that and I really hope that one day this industry gets a lot more respect than it does. And all I can do is try to lift the profile of it and do
Right.
what I do as best as I can because I love it.
Right. What do you think it's going to take?
was gonna say it kind of reminds me of something that I've noticed is getting a lot more, I guess, coverage or a little bit more respect now, and it's actors versus like voice actors
Yeah.
for the people that are
Yeah.
just in the studio and they're doing like anime for dubs, blah blah blah, whatever it is, and I've noticed that it was just like, oh, people didn't really pay attention to voice actors and they were just like completely unknown. You didn't see them, you'd see their name and credits, blah, blah, blah. But it was just like, oh, you're a voice actor? Well, you're not a real actor. You're not on the screen, you're not blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But it's also like the real actors, they will also have to do voiceover work for their movies.
Yep.
So it's like.
So the most underappreciated person in all of Hollywood is Andy Serkis. Without any question. He is the most underappreciated. And you're like, what are you talking about? He's in all kinds of movies and people love him. Still underappreciated. Still the most talented person in Hollywood.
That is.
You don't know who Andy Serkis is?
Not by name.
Okay.
Well, and there you go. He was.
Yeah.
He played He played Gollum. He played Snoke. He was in Andor.
That guy.
Yeah.
Oh, holy cow.
Yeah, see, now you know.
Now I know.
You know. But I'll be honest, though. I love that I get to see his face more because he is an amazing actor. He took that role of Gollum and made it his own, and I think he got insanely recognized, right? But to Flake's point, right? He is still underappreciated. But recently, he was in Andor, I think, which I still haven't seen, but I know he's in it. He was in something. Oh, he was in a Marvel movie. I can't remember which one.
He was in
Black Panther, I think.
Black Panther. Yep, he was in Black Panther.
I think it was.
He played. He's Alfred in the Batman.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
Oh.
I'm so happy that I get to see him on screen more because I'm like, that is exactly what you deserve. Like you deserve so much more than that. But he's getting those roles. Absolutely. I love that. But to piggyback off of what you were saying, what do you think it's going to take to change that? Like, what do you think has to happen for your industry to get the recognition that it deserves? Or do you just think hopefully it comes with time?
A mass wave of old people retiring. I hope. Like this is the people that I listen to on the radio going to school in kindergarten are the same people 32 years later on the radio yelling at clouds. There is no room. There is no room for people like myself who want to get in because they just own that space. It's kind of an old boys club in that regard where that's partially why I just gave up on it, because no matter what happened, like when I was interning at that radio station, the program director's like, Matt, you're awesome. Like we want to bring you back. We want you to help train some of the new interns. I said, cool. Like, is this leading to anything? Can I get paid? Not a chance. Okay, cool. Thank you. I'm going to go finish my degree and I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you so much. I can only work for free for so long, but I got some great experience. I made some good connections. Like I said, somebody like PJ Stock is somebody I owe a lot of my confidence to. He's hilarious. He's a goofball, but he is one of the purest hearts that are out there. But what'll it take? I don't know. I genuinely don't know what'll it take to put some respect on this kind of broadcasting name. But there is a plethora of really strong voices, really articulate and just animated voices out there that put so much love into what they do, and they really draw people into it. People like Mitch Leslie, Uber from Overwatch League. You know, you're talking about like who your idols are. He'll probably maybe listen to this, so I'm not going to say him. But in this industry, there's very few people in this industry that give me pause to say I got to do better. But that's one of them. He is certainly somebody where I'm like, God damn, like I need to up my game, because if I've casted with him, I've done Flesh and Blood with him. This is a dude where, you know, like all things considered, this is somebody who should be on TV doing this stuff. He's really good at what he does, and I truly believe that I am too. But what'll it take? I honestly don't know, because all I can do is work hard and make connections and just cross my fingers that somebody sees something and sees something in me.
Yeah, like for me, for us, I've viewed kind of how we started doing this. I'm like, I'm gonna put my head down, work as hard as I possibly can, and just plow forward. I'm not gonna look up. I'm not gonna look and see what's going on around me, making sure I'm getting praise, right? It's just I want to work as hard as I possibly can and keep pushing. And I'll look up to see what my peers are doing and make sure if there's somebody who's ahead of me, I'm working to get them, right? And work, and they're pushing me. And like there's plenty of people like for us, I always look at Josh and Jimmy at the command zone. Like what they've built, I'm like, that right there, that is what I'm going to aspire to, and just continue to push towards that. So I think it's always great to have people that you look up to and you respect, who are going to continually push to make you better. 100%. So, all right. Well, now we're going to talk about our favorite part of the podcast. One of our favorite things, and this is from a game that we haven't featured any card.
This game doesn't even exist.
You watch your tongue. You're already on thin ice, you.
All right, Matt. Can you talk about this week's card of the week for us?
Yes, the card of the week is Luke Skywalker, Jedi Knight from Star Wars CCG, the best game ever created, bar none, without question.
Dude, I'd rather play Villainous.
The best freaking thing you've ever seen. So this game, first of all, now the reason why this card is so iconic was because it was the first card that the first persona of Luke printed that had him with such a high stat line, as well as indicated as he is a Jedi Knight. The whole this was from a set called Death Star 2, which obviously, you know, encapsulated all the events of the Battle of Endor, and ultimately why this card is so amazing is because, first of all, it's a 6 power, 6 ability card, which is like bonkers high. Most cards are in the 2 to 3 on each side range, so it's huge. The game text makes him just a powerhouse when he's got a lightsaber. He's just but again, it feeds to the fact that he has become a Jedi. He confronts his father. He defeats the Emperor. He is a Jedi Knight. That's who he is. The important part about why this card is bananas is one of the ways that the game balanced cards was at the top right of the card is what's called the destiny number. It is the RNG element of the game. The numbers range from 0 to 7. Very few cards printed were 7s. The ones that were typically very useless, but 6s there was a bunch of them, and people would put very low playable 6s in their deck because some of the game mechanics required you to, quote, draw destiny, whether you're like increasing your power, firing a weapon, trying to accomplish something, you would draw destiny. And the destiny number typically had to be greater than something else. A 6 was like a sure thing every time. So most of the strong characters, like earlier renditions of Luke, Obi-Wan, whatever, they were all 1s. Vader was a 1. Luke was a 1, Leia was a 1. So that was how they balanced it. It's like, you want to load up your deck with powerful people, your destiny draws are going to be garbage.
Yeah.
This was the first character that came out that had a tank stat line with a 6 as the destiny. There was no downside to this card. And Star Wars CCG had no deck building restrictions. So do you want to jam like 10 of them and you got the cash? Freaking go, baby. Now, that is not...
What?
Damn right. You damn right. Now, most decks never ran more than like 1 or 2 because it didn't make sense to run more based on the rules of the game, etc. Because you could only have one on the board at a time and the other ones were useless. But there was literally no downside to playing multiple copies because you weren't polluting your deck with low destiny numbers. And that's why this card, and it had a dark side counterpart in that set. The Emperor was the first time the Emperor was ever printed. And that mofo came out with a 6 destiny number 2. So they were the two iconic. The reason why I took Luke was because whenever I played with my buddy Jed that I talked about, we split a collection. I took all the light side cards and he took all the dark side cards, and we'd do battle. So I chose Luke because I played Luke. I finally got a hold of a Luke. I bought my first Luke. I don't know where the other one went in my previous collection, but I slammed down a solid 3 bills for that mofo just to complete my Star Wars CCG collection. And he's living so beautifully on that shelf right there, in a binder, in a sleeve, in a this, in a that. And that is the iconic card that I wanted to share with you guys.
Awesome.
That is awesome. And this is why we started the card of the week.
I didn't even know that card was that expensive.
Well, what's it worth now?
I could, if I pulled some strings, I could probably get one near mint condition for about $250 US, maybe closer to 300. But I would have to like ask a friend of a friend of a friend who has heard the podcast and is like, wants to do me a solid.
Right. Understood. Yeah. So ever since like starting our channel and starting doing all of our content, I've heard plenty talk about this game. Never played it. Wasn't really doing, playing any sort of card games when this was around. Heard so many things about it. I love hearing stories like that. Like last week we heard an amazing story, right? But Flake, thank you. Like, this is exactly why we started the card of the week. And this is never going away. I love this. This is awesome.
I didn't want to come in. I didn't want to come in empty-handed, boys. I really wanted to show up with the goods, and I wasn't gonna just. Oh, this is Dr. Boom, and
I love Dr. Boom.
like that was on the radar for me, but I was like, everybody's. I don't know. I'm gonna see. Leroy Jenkins and Sylvanas and whatnot. Sylvanas was my all-time favorite Hearthstone card. I actually have a pop vinyl of her somewhere back there. But but yeah, no, when it comes down to it, baby, that Luke Skywalker Jedi Knight is the centerpiece of my collection. It is a beautiful, beautiful card, and it brings back so many memories.
That is awesome. Well, Matt, thank you so much for that. That was awesome. I love hearing stories like that. All right, Matt, can you let our audience know where can people find you on the internet and find you and your content?
Absolutely. So you can catch me specifically on Twitter at WatchFlake, WATCHFLAKE. You can catch me on Twitch, the same thing. My podcast is the Instant Speed Podcast. That's at Instant Speed Pod on Twitter. There's the Podcana podcast. That's at Podcana. That's my Lorcana podcast. What else? I do a lot of stuff for 983 Media, which is a TCG media house. You can catch them at youtube.com/983 Media, and that's about it. But yeah, just shoot me a message on Twitter. I pride myself in the fact that I answer 99% of messages I get because I just like talking about cards. So
awesome. Can confirm on that one 100%. So Matt, thank you so much for being here. This was a lot of fun, and like we said earlier, we could probably continue this for like multiple hours on end, but we'll save that for another day. Thank you for joining us today, Matt, and we look forward to talking with you in the future.
No worries. And you can have me on when you finally watch Andor, you traitor.
Understood. I have not had that much fun in a long time. Like, we are like so blessed with all these people we're talking to. It's crazy, man.
Dan, did I troll him too much?
No. Not enough.
More.
Not enough. But you know what? The thing I love about Matt is he'll take it, he'll give it right back to you.
Oh yeah, it was so much fun. He had me dying, man.
Oh,
he had me dying.
Same, dude. Same. Well, we hope you guys enjoyed that episode. But you know what? Before we get out of here, Jim, where can people find you on the internet?
Yeah, you guys can find me on Twitter, Twitch, and Instagram at Jim Morgan HNH.
You guys can find me on Twitter at _DG. Twitter is _DG Campbell. Instagram is Daniel.G.Campbell. If you head over to our website, hobbiesandhappiness.com, you can find links to all of our social platforms there. You can find us on Twitter and find us on all the socials. And again, don't forget, check the links down in the description where you can find Matt and where you can find Matt on the internet and all of his podcasts as well. So guys, 100% if you're into Lorcana, be sure to check out his podcast, Podcana. And then if you're into Flesh and Blood, check out all the projects that he's doing there as well. And you know what? If you ever need a caster, make sure you hit him up. Make sure you hit Matt up. I guarantee you, he will. He'll see if he can. He'll see if he can work it. He'll see if he can work it as he's trying to continually get gigs for that. Well, that's all I got for you this week. Hopefully, you all enjoyed the episode, and we'll catch you in the next episode. See you, everybody.
Take care.